I found Ryan Harper's old phone from 10 years ago in the storage room. Back then, he forgot the password, and after multiple failed attempts, the phone was locked for 80.000 hours. The phone held countless memories of our time together. Determined to access it, I went out and bought a wide port charger. By the time I finished cleaning, the phone had charged, and it showed 4 hours left before I could re-enter the password. I lay down, scrolling through my current phone to pass the time. 4 hours later, I picked up the old phone. My fingers instinctively entered my birth date. After the phone had been locked, Ryan had changed all his passwords to my birthday, the day he confessed his feelings to me when I turned 18. Before I realized it, I had already input all 6 digits. I braced myself, thinking the phone would lock again. To my surprise, the password worked, and the phone unlocked. What greeted me was shocking. A photo of my sister, Emily, as the wallpaper. The lock screen was of Emily. I jolted upright, an unsettling absurdity washing over me. The password was correct, so he hadn't forgotten it. Had he locked the phone on purpose? I remembered this phone once stored our intimate photos and sweet conversations. But now, there was nothing about me. The photo album was filled with pictures of Emily, her back, her profile, moments of her practicing dance, walking to the cafeteria. The images were many, chaotic, and deeply personal. The chat history between Ryan and Emily was disturbingly close and flirtatious. Judging by the timestamps, this was during the time I was with Ryan. They shamelessly talked about me, filling their messages with ambiguous undertones. In the end, Emily said she had someone she liked and deleted Ryan. The chat turned into a long string of green texts, emotional outpourings brimming with heartfelt love. The date coincided with the day Ryan's phone was locked for 80.000 hours. So, he locked the phone because Emily cut ties with him after falling for someone else. Suddenly, I remembered Emily got divorced yesterday, and last night, Ryan came home drunk, vomiting everywhere, which is why I was cleaning today and stumbled upon the phone. So, Ryan had loved Emily all along, from high school until now. What did that make me? My chest tightened, breathing became difficult, and I trembled all over. I accidentally opened the phone's notes app. The top entry was a draft confession. With shaky hands, I opened it. Every word was identical to the confession he once gave me, except for one difference. The name on the draft was Emily Harper. My name is Lily Harper. It hit me. On the day Ryan confessed to me, the flowers he brought were wilted. Turned out, I was his second choice. The past 10 years were nothing but a grand deception. My breathing became labored, and the world went dark as I fainted. When I opened my eyes, I found myself back at 17 years old. In the early winter of that year, fallen leaves blanketed the ground, and the air was crisp. I rushed to the bathroom to wash my face, trying to clear my mind. In my haste, I didn't notice the sign and entered the men's restroom. To make matters worse, someone walked in. Panicking, I hid in a stall, my heart pounding. "Are you really going to confess to the school beauty? She's got plenty of admirers," a voice said. "Whether I confess or you confess, it doesn't matter. I'm not scared. So why are you?" came Ryan's familiar, nonchalant voice. "Even if you fail, it's fine. There's always Lily Harper as a backup." "Right," his friend replied, laughing. "You're something else. Man, can't get the school beauty? No problem. You've got her little sister," his friend continued, bursting into laughter. "Though, it's strange. Lily Harper and the school beauty are twins." Ryan Harper's casual laughter filled the room, dripping with a kind of self-satisfaction that grated on my nerves. He was showing off, bragging about how easy it was to have someone run errands for him, like lining up for lunch or grabbing a drink. His words were playful, but they stabbed at me like needles. His friends chimed in, teasing and laughing, their voices echoing painfully in my ears. How could someone as plain as him even think about liking someone like the school beauty? It's like a stray mutt from the countryside dreaming about a swan from the city. The words stung, even though they weren't directed at me. They kept talking, their voices getting fainter as they walked away. Only then did I clench my fists and step out of the stall. My heart pounded as I hurried back to the classroom with my head down. Just as I sat at my desk, the bell rang. Emily Harper walked in, elegant as always, and took her seat beside me. Without a word, she shifted her chair slightly away. I couldn't help but glance at her, feeling the distance between us. Emily and I truly were worlds apart. When my mom gave birth to twins, The family quickly decided they didn't have the resources to raise us both. My grandparents offered to take me, while my parents kept Emily. She stayed in the city, cradled in my mother's arms, breastfeeding and growing up with all the care in the world. Meanwhile, I was sent to the countryside, raised on powdered milk and rice paste. By the time we were toddlers, the differences between us were stark. While Emily wore delicate princess dresses and grew up rosy-cheeked, I played in the mud, my skin darkened by the sun. The gap widened with time. Emily was pampered and adored, while I was left in the care of my strict, frugal grandparents. My grandmother would often say, "Your mother didn't want you." Words that stuck with me like a shadow. I didn't return to the city until high school, when my grandparents could no longer provide for my education. First, I was thrilled to live with my family, thinking things would finally change. But my mother's constant criticism crushed my enthusiasm. She never stopped comparing me to Emily. If Emily liked dancing, they'd scrape together money for her lessons. She won awards and shone like a swan, while I stood awkwardly on the sidelines, a clumsy duckling. Within a year, the constant pressure and comparisons eroded my confidence. I became self-conscious and sensitive, especially after Emily and I ended up in the same class in our second year of high school. It was inevitable that we'd be seated together, but sharing a desk with her felt like the final blow. My life seemed to dim entirely from that moment. But now, I wasn't the same Lily Harper. I had lived through the pain, and I could see clearly that the fault wasn't mine. It never was. Emily caught me staring at her and raised an eyebrow, her expression as haughty as ever. "What?" she asked. "Did you know Ryan likes you?" I asked bluntly. Emily shrugged. "So? There are plenty of people who like me. Why should I care?" Her tone was indifferent, almost dismissive. So she knew. Of course, she did. Ryan was well known at school. Everyone recognized him, though not for the same reasons. He wasn't one of the top students but rather one of the most notorious troublemakers. I had secretly liked Ryan back then, even scribbling his name in the corners of my notebook. Emily once caught me doing it and sneered. "How could you like someone like Ryan Harper? He's just a delinquent." Her words echoed in my mind now, sharper than ever. I naturally didn't tell Emily Harper the reason behind my behavior, but she knew I liked Ryan Harper. And when Ryan failed to confess to her and then got together with me, she didn't say a word. No warning, no hint, nothing. Even after Ryan and I started dating, she kept up her ambiguous behavior with him. What was she thinking back then? Was she enjoying the drama? Relishing the chaos? Taking pleasure in my misfortune? I let out a slow breath, suppressing the urge to confront her. Emily suddenly seemed to remember something and, with a smug tone, said, "Oh, I forgot. You liked him, didn't you?" She spoke loudly enough for the surrounding classmates to hear, and their curious glances quickly turned toward us. Keeping my composure, I replied calmly, "You must be mistaken. I don't like anyone. Senior year is way too busy for things like dating. Unlike you, we're not just preparing for a single exam. I'd rather spend my time doing a few more practice questions." Emily's face darkened. "Lily Harper, what's that supposed to mean?" she snapped. I glanced out the window, where I saw the teacher approaching. Emily, clearly frustrated, had no choice but to stay quiet and shot me a glare before turning back to her work. When the class ended, it was lunchtime. As usual, Ryan Harper would come to our classroom, ostensibly to talk to Emily, but really to have me line up for his lunch, deliver small gifts, and find excuses to get closer to her. True to form, as soon as the bell rang, Ryan was already waiting at the classroom door. Once the teacher left, he strolled in lazily, one hand in his pocket, tapping lightly on my desk with his knuckles. With a smirk that barely hid his arrogance, he said, "Lily, the cafeteria has a new dish. I hear it's really good." The meaning was clear. He wanted me to get his lunch. The cafeteria was notorious for running out of good food quickly. By the time I finished getting his meal, the dishes I liked were often gone, leaving nothing but soup. Not only that, I had to bring his meal back to him before heading back to eat my own. And afterward, I'd end up washing his dishes. Looking back now, I couldn't believe how ridiculous I had been. So deeply infatuated with him over nothing. The thought of it filled me with anger. I didn't even spare Ryan a glance. His expression stiffened slightly, but with Emily present, he didn't dare cause a scene. Instead, Emily spoke up, her tone dripping with superiority. "Lily, bring me some lunch to my dorm too. I have something to discuss with Ryan. Her words carried a deliberate air of command, her gaze challenging me. She wanted to use Ryan to make me jealous, to provoke me, but I stood up, smiling faintly, and cut her off before she could finish. Without a word, I walked right past them, heading for the cafeteria. Just as I was leaving, Ryan called after me, his tone laced with reproach. Lily, as a younger sister, you should listen to your elder sister. I couldn't hold back my eye roll. Turning to him, I said, "Am I your mom?" Then I glanced at Emily, or maybe hers. The entire class burst into laughter, and their faces turned red with embarrassment. I walked out of the classroom without looking back, leaving them behind in stunned silence. Ryan, however, wasn't one to give up easily. While I was in the cafeteria, one of his friends came over with a message. Ryan says he's waiting for you in the classroom. He hopes you won't keep him waiting too long. His tone carried a faint hint of a threat. I ignored the message completely. Who did Ryan Harper think he was? After enjoying a delicious meal of braised pork and ribs, I bought an ice-cold drink and leisurely made my way back to the dorm for a nap. Senior year was exhausting, and the pressure was relentless. Most students spent their lunch breaks in the classroom, cramming and reviewing questions, their minds on overdrive. I used to do the same. But today, I just wanted to indulge myself a little. If Ryan wanted to wait, he could keep waiting. As soon as I entered the dorm, I noticed Emily Harper was there. She wasn't even assigned to my dorm. The moment she saw me, she looked me up and down and asked, "Where's my lunch?" Sometimes I genuinely wonder how many people manage to go through life with subpar intelligence but still function independently. They're labeled as normal, simply because they can take care of themselves. Emily, seemingly realizing I hadn't brought her food, stood up abruptly and yelled, "Lily Harper, I told you to bring me lunch. Didn't you hear me? What am I supposed to eat now? Are you doing this on purpose?" I raised my voice even louder, cutting her off. I said, "I'm not bringing it. Are you deaf? Or is there something wrong with your brain? Can't you understand simple words? Are you stupid?" At school, Emily and I rarely interacted. Even though we sat together, she was the school beauty, and I was invisible. Occasionally, she'd ask me to do something, and while I hated it, I'd begrudgingly comply. Today, however, she was clearly furious, expecting to boss me around as usual, but I wasn't playing along. She froze for a couple of seconds, stunned by my defiance, before snapping, "You've got some nerve. How dare you yell at me? Just wait until I tell Mom and Dad. They'll make you pay." Unfazed, I replied, "Go ahead, you overgrown baby." Emily pointed a trembling finger at me, unable to form a coherent sentence. Finally, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I could already imagine her exaggerating the story when she got home for the weekend, painting herself as the victim. My parents would undoubtedly take her side and punish me, but I wasn't the same Lily Harper anymore. I wasn't going to put up with it. That afternoon, when I returned home, Emily had already twisted the story to our parents. The moment I stepped inside, a remote control flew toward me, striking my forehead with a sharp pain that made me cry out. My mother, pointing at me angrily, began to berate me. "You ungrateful little brat. What's so hard about bringing your sister lunch? She's your elder sister. How could you let her go hungry all afternoon? I bet you're jealous of her dancing and deliberately wanted to starve her. You're spiteful and malicious. We should never have brought you back here. You're nothing but a heartless, ungrateful wretch." My father, his expression equally dark, chimed in. "You weren't raised with us, and your temperament is completely ruined. From now on, your weekly allowance is cut in half. It'll stay that way until you learn your lesson. Now apologize to your sister." Emily stood to the side, smirking smugly, clearly anticipating my submission. I lowered the hand covering my forehead and said coldly, "I won't apologize. Go ahead and beat me if you want." The words had barely left my mouth when my mother stormed over and slapped me hard across the face. Her arm swung with such force that I stumbled and hit the nearby shoe cabinet. Despite the stinging pain, I refused to shed a single tear. I had anticipated their reaction before coming home, knowing that their cruelty would escalate. But even so, I stood my ground, bracing myself for the chaos that was about to erupt in this house. My mom was still yelling at me as I bolted to my bedroom. Locking the door behind me, I grabbed the phone hidden under my pillow and called my grandmother on video. Tears streamed down my face as I sobbed uncontrollably. Years ago, In an effort to win my mother's approval, I had cut off contact with my grandparents, but my grandmother was the one who had fed me, raised me, and loved me more than anyone. She wasn't perfect, but she adored me. When the call connected, I immediately showed her the slap mark on my face and the bruise on my forehead. "Grandma, help me. Mom and Dad are going to kill me," I cried, barely able to speak through the tears. On the other side of the video, my grandmother dropped what she was doing and called out to my grandfather, "Don't be afraid, sweetie. Grandma's coming to stand up for you. No one gets to bully my granddaughter while I'm still alive." For hours later, my grandparents stormed into the house like a hurricane. By then, the sun had set, and the living room was lit with the warm glow of the dining area where my parents and Emily were eating together, laughing like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I was hiding in my room, invisible as ever. When my dad opened the door, he was greeted with a slap across the face from my grandfather. "I sent Lily here to have a better life, not to be mistreated. How could you hit a little girl like that? You don't deserve to be parents," my grandfather roared. My grandmother, wasting no time, marched straight toward my mom, slapping her thighs. She dramatically sat on the floor and began wailing. "Oh, my poor Lily. Such a sweet, obedient child. And now her face is swollen from being hit. I raised her like she was my own treasure. And now this. How could her own mother be so cruel? They're both your daughters. How can you be so biased?" My mom wasn't about to back down. "And aren't you biased too? Both girls are your granddaughters. But have you ever treated Emily kindly?" she retorted, her voice sharp. But my grandmother didn't listen and continued her wailing. Soon, the neighbors began peeking out of their doors, curious about the commotion. My dad, embarrassed, covered the slap mark on his face and hurried to shut the door. The living room was a chaotic mess for a while. My grandmother crying, my mom yelling, neither willing to back down. Eventually, my grandfather and dad managed to calm things down, pulling their respective wives apart. The room finally grew quieter, and that's when I opened my door and walked out timidly. "Grandma, Grandpa," I said softly. The moment my grandmother saw me, she rushed to embrace me. "Lily, why didn't you tell Grandma when you were being mistreated? It must be that mother of yours, threatening you to keep quiet, isn't it? Grandma always knew she wasn't good to you. She even stopped us from moving in when we bought this house. She didn't want us near you and made you cut ties with us." "Oh, it breaks my heart." My mom tried to interject, but my dad held her back. My grandfather waved a hand decisively and said, "Lily has her college entrance exams coming up soon. Do you two even understand how important that is? We're staying here from now on to make sure she doesn't become your punching bag again. You clearly don't care about her, so we'll take her with us after the exams." My mom shrieked, "You're staying here?" My grandmother's voice boomed even louder. "Why not? Isn't this my son's house? Don't I have every right to stay here?" My grandfather gave my dad a look, and my dad had no choice but to nod reluctantly. That night, my grandmother stayed in my room with me. As she gently stroked my face, she said, "Lily, Grandma knows you don't like me. You've always wanted your mom's approval. But you're my child, I raised you. How could I ever bear to see you suffer?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I hugged her tightly. "I love you, Grandma," I whispered, my voice trembling. In my past life, I had spent so much time trying to earn my mom's love, even as she favored Emily in everything. My mom constantly praised Emily, catered to her every whim, and compared me unfavorably. For years, I had struggled with sensitivity, anxiety, and insomnia. It wasn't until much later that I finally accepted that my mom simply didn't like me. By the time I realized how much I missed and needed my grandmother, it was too late. Now, holding her in my arms, I could only choke out, "I'm sorry, Grandma. I shouldn't have stopped contacting you. Her personality might be bad, and she may have plenty of flaws, but as long as she loves me, that's enough." Since my grandparents arrived, the household had fallen into a strange balance. My parents and Emily Harper showered each other with affection, while my grandparents doted on me, asking about my well-being at every opportunity. It felt like there was an unspoken competition to one-up each other. The whole situation was unsettling, almost as if we weren't even a family. I couldn't understand why I had ended up in such an odd household. When it was time to return to school over the weekend, Emily, likely having been instructed by my parents, didn't say a single word to me. I didn't mind the silence. Suited me just fine. However, As night fell and the self-study session was about to begin, Ryan Harper appeared, blocking my way in the dimly lit corridor. He stood firmly in front of me, his gaze fixed on mine with an oppressive intensity. "Lily Harper, I don't like disobedient people. Go and apologize to Emily. Now." Clicked instantly. Emily had gone to him to complain. I rolled my eyes and replied, "You like her, don't you? Let me help you chase her. Look, she's already taken the initiative to talk to you today." Ryan's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. I got straight to the point. "My sister hates me. The angrier I make her, the more she'll want to retaliate. She knows I used to like you, so she'll try to get closer to you just to spite me." I deliberately paused. Ryan leaned in, pressing. "And then, if you pretend to like me, she'll do everything she can to win you over," I finished. Watching his expression shift, Ryan seemed intrigued but hesitated when he looked at me. I could tell he wasn't thrilled about the idea. After all, Emily was the school beauty, adored by many, but few could claim the distinction of having Ryan Harper chase after them. Eventually, he smirked and said, "All right." I couldn't help but curl my lips into a sly smile. The game had just begun. Weekend self-study sessions were loosely monitored by teachers. Ryan brazenly entered our classroom, where some open seats remained since commuting students didn't attend these sessions. Emily sat far from me, but Ryan chose the empty seat directly behind me. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Emily's startled expression. Suddenly, I felt a poke on my back. Turning around, I saw Ryan grinning as he handed me a piece of paper. It was blank. He was simply using it as an excuse to draw Emily's attention. Playing along, I pretended to scribble something on it before passing it back to him. Emily, clearly furious, stormed over and sat next to me. Reaching out, she tried to grab the note, but I quickly tucked it into my pocket and buried my head in my workbook as if she wasn't there. From behind, Ryan whistled teasingly at Emily, which only made her more livid. After the self-study session ended, I took my time packing up, deliberately dawdling so I could follow them unnoticed. On the way back to the dorms, Emily stopped Ryan in his tracks, her voice sharp with anger. "What were you two writing on that note? And didn't you say you'd make Lily apologize to me?" Ryan crossed his arms casually. "Apologies. I suddenly realized Lily's kind of cute. She likes me and listens to me. I thought I'd give it a try." Emily's voice rose an octave. "You like her?" she exclaimed, incredulous. Ryan nodded with a smirk. "A little bit." Emily stared at him, disbelief written all over her face. "But, don't you like me?" Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Did I ever say that?" The air turned heavy with silence. From my spot behind them, I watched the scene unfold, thoroughly entertained by the drama. Finally, Emily gritted her teeth and said, "You can't like Lily." "Why not?" Ryan asked innocently, feigning confusion. "Because I like you," Emily blurted out, her voice trembling with frustration. "You dump Lily Harper and be with me." I didn't even need to look at Ryan Harper to know he was thrilled. Feigning hesitation, he said, "But Lily has done so much for me while trying to win my heart. I'm really touched." Emily Harper, entirely led by the nose, declared, "Fine, I'll chase you. Just wait." After Emily stormed off, Ryan's grin didn't falter for a second. He was practically glowing with pride. Clearly, he was overjoyed. I hoped his happiness would last, though I doubted it. The next day, Emily started actively trying to win Ryan over. I didn't even have to guide her. Ryan handled everything perfectly. Whenever Emily made a move, he would pretend to be affectionate with me, keeping her on edge. When she got angry, he'd sweet-talk her back into a good mood. The dynamic mirrored the old chat logs I'd seen between them, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. While the two of them played their little game, I buried myself in studying. In my previous life, I graduated with a teaching degree and later became a high school teacher. These topics were second nature to me, but I still practiced diligently. This time, I wasn't settling for just becoming a teacher. Soon, rumors spread around school that Emily, the school beauty, was chasing Ryan. During a rare sunny PE class, I sat on the grass, basking in the sunlight while reading a book. With my back to the sun, I suddenly heard someone sit down behind me and start chatting loudly. "I'm telling you, our Ryan is irresistible. Even the school beauty is chasing after him now." "School beauty? She can dance a bit and has won a few awards." But she's not even in Ryan's league. Ryan's voice, brimming with smugness, cut in. All right. That's enough. Girls are sensitive. Let's not embarrass her. She's been chasing me for a while now. Keeping her hanging isn't great either. When it comes to confessing, that's a guy's job. Meanwhile, the class teacher had caught wind of the rumors and called Emily to the office. Emily Harper, even if you're taking the arts route, cultural subjects are still crucial. Do you understand? Faced with the teacher's stern expression, Emily turned pale. Yes, I understand, she mumbled. The teacher didn't say anything outright, but emphasized the importance of focusing on academics before letting her go. By the time I returned from the field after overhearing Ryan's bragging session, Emily had just stepped out of the office. I pulled her aside immediately. The moment she saw me, she shook off my hand with disgust. Lily Harper, did you snitch on me? Don't think you can act all high and mighty just because Grandma and Grandpa are here. That house is still my parents' property, and they can kick them out anytime. Don't forget, when they bought that house, they didn't have enough money and borrowed a lot from Grandma and Grandpa. Back then, Grandma wanted to enroll me in a dance class and you in a hobby class of your choice. But all the extra money went toward that house instead. They believed if Emily Harper could have something, Lily Harper should too. Even though it was inconvenient for them to send you to lessons from the countryside, they still wanted it to be fair. But because of the house, they couldn't afford to enroll you. I fixed my gaze on her. The house deed might have your parents' names on it, but half of the money came from Grandma and Grandpa, so they have every right to be there. And there's nothing you or your parents can do to kick them out, unless you want the neighbors to talk about you behind your back. Emily froze, unable to respond immediately. I pulled you aside to tell you that Ryan Harper is playing both of us. I continued calmly. Her expression wavered. What do you mean? Ryan told me he likes you but wanted to give me a chance to pursue him. And at the same time, he told you he likes me and encouraged you to chase him. He's lying to both of us. Trying to have his cake and eat it too. Emily, proud and self-righteous, couldn't stand the idea of being deceived or toyed with. But as always, she was too naive to realize how foolish she looked. I overheard that he's planning to confess to you in a couple of days. After dropping that bombshell, I turned and walked away. There was no need for me to give any suggestions. Emily Harper always knew how to hit where it hurt most. Back when I first arrived in the city, I often felt crushed under her heel, unable to hold my head high in front of her. At the time, I didn't understand why she treated me with so much hostility despite the fact that we were blood related. Over time, I realized it was because our parents didn't like me, and she simply mirrored their behavior. But now, it didn't matter anymore. I didn't care for them either. Soon, the day arrived. The date I remembered so clearly from my previous life, my birthday. It was also Emily's birthday. The wind was particularly strong that day, and the teachers were in a meeting. Ryan Harper had prepared flowers, balloons, and gifts to confess to Emily in front of the girls' dormitory. He sent someone upstairs to call her down. Emily, standing on the balcony, saw Ryan but didn't come down. The person returned to Ryan, saying, Emily's upset. She says the last time she was called to the office, you didn't stand up for her. She thinks you're spineless. You should go tell her yourself. Ryan, confused, asked, when was she called to the office? I didn't even know about it. Before he could finish, the person turned and walked away, determined to prove himself. Ryan stayed in front of the dormitory for an hour, standing resolutely in the cold wind. A large crowd gathered, watching him. Ryan, like the protagonist of some dramatic romance novel, called out Emily's name loudly and recited the confession from the notes I had read before. Emily Harper, from the moment I first saw you, I was captivated, but the deeper my feelings grew, the more afraid I became. Hiding among the crowd, I listened as he finished his heartfelt speech. The students around him clapped enthusiastically, urging Emily to come down. Eventually, she did, though she took her time, descending with an air of superiority. Ryan Harper, she began with a scoff. You really think too highly of yourself. I was just playing around. Did you actually take it seriously? Someone like you, I wouldn't want even if you were free. You're failing in school, and your character is terrible. No wonder your parents got divorced and left you behind. If I had a son like you, I'd rather be dead. Her final words pierced Ryan like a dagger. The crowd fell silent. Ryan's face turned ashen, his expression twisting with pain. Emily Harper, say that again, he demanded. his voice trembling with rage. Emily sneered. I said your parents are divorced. And you're nothing but a parentless kid. Before she could finish, Ryan threw the flowers he'd been holding straight at her face. Emily flinched as Ryan charged toward her, but bystanders held him back, urging him to calm down. Ryan's greatest sore spot was any mention of his parents. That moment, it looked like he wanted to tear Emily apart. I suddenly realized he probably didn't love Emily that much after all. Perhaps it was only the idea of her, the unattainable, that had drawn him in. In the end, Ryan was forcibly dragged away, and Emily, shaken, hurried back to the dormitory. Left on the ground was a wilting bouquet, identical to the one he'd given me in my past life. In my previous life, Ryan had come to confess to me that afternoon. But today, instead of seeking me out, he ended up being reprimanded for causing a public disturbance. I doubted he would come find me again. Pity, really. I was looking forward to rubbing salt in his wounds. That evening, Emily and I had been excused from self-study to return home for our birthday. This time, things were different. On the table, alongside Emily's favorite strawberry cake, was a mango cake. My favorite. Emily was allergic to mangoes, and eating them caused blisters around her lips. Because of this, mangoes had always been banned in our house, even though I loved them. Even now, as an adult capable of self-control, the rules still held. Yet tonight, there it was, a mango cake, placed proudly on the table. Sitting before the cake were my grandparents, their faces beaming with joy. My mom's face darkened, but she didn't say anything. Her expression only brightened when she looked at Emily Harper. Emily, come here. After today, our Emily will officially be an adult. Because things have been so rushed and we couldn't take time off, we weren't able to throw you a proper coming-of-age celebration. But after your college entrance exams, we'll definitely make it up to you with a grand ceremony. Emily cozied up to them, sliding between our parents with a sweet smile, hugging them affectionately. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Seeing this, my grandmother walked over and took my hand. We'll throw you a coming-of-age party too, at the biggest hotel in town. I smiled at her. Okay, thank you, Grandma. At the dining table, with 2 cakes and 6 people, we should have been a warm, united family, but instead, we sat divided into 2 camps, each occupying one end of the table. When it came time to make a wish, I hesitated, staring at the candles without blowing them out. My grandmother leaned closer, her voice gentle. What's wrong, Lily? I looked at my parents and Emily sitting across from me. For the last time, I voiced the question that had lingered in my heart. Mom, Dad, Emily, why do you hate me so much? Today is my birthday. Can you tell me? Just this once. This was the question I had never dared to ask in my previous life. The one I had always wanted to hear them answer. My mom sneered and was about to say something harsh when my dad coughed, cutting her off. Lily, we don't dislike you, he began, his tone awkward. It's just that you didn't grow up with us. Moving forward, your mom and I will do our best to make up for it. My mom pressed her lips together, clearly holding back. But then she added, you've always been so well behaved and easy to take care of. Unlike your sister, Emily was always sick and crying. So of course, I had to spend more time on her. But now you're all grown up. From now on, get along with your sister. Whatever she has, you'll have too. Emily, however, was blunt. I always thought I was their only daughter. I didn't even know we were twins. Then, out of nowhere, I had to share my parents' attention with a sister. Who wouldn't feel resentful? I looked at them, smiling bitterly. They weren't answering the question, they were avoiding it, dodging the mistakes they'd made. Closing my eyes, I made my wish. I wish never to see Mom, Dad, or Emily again. When I opened my eyes and blew out the candles, my parents' faces turned cold. Lily Harper, what is that supposed to mean? My mom snapped. Have we been too lenient with you lately? If it weren't for your grandma insisting, do you think I'd have brought you here? If you have anyone to blame, blame her. It has nothing to do with me. My dad joined in angrily. I've been holding back because you're still young. But how could you make such a cruel wish? I regret not disciplining you properly when you were a child. Emily stayed silent, her expression unreadable. My grandmother opened her mouth to speak, but I gently held her back. I looked at them and said, I wish you 3 all the happiness in the world. If the decision you made back then was a mistake, then let it remain a mistake. Some prejudices run so deep, they're impossible to change. Since we had school the next day, Emily and I had to return after the celebration. On the way back, my grandmother seemed like she wanted to say something several times but stopped herself. As we reached the school gates, she finally called out to me, her eyes clouded with worry. "Lily, Grandma was wrong back then to insist on taking you in. A child can't grow up properly without their parents." I walked back to her and hugged her tightly, my voice trembling. "It's enough to have you and Grandpa. In my previous life, I also thought I couldn't live without my parents. But in the end, the more I wanted their love, the less I received. Sometimes, it's better to let go of what doesn't belong to you, even if Grandma made mistakes back then. In my eyes, her love for me was enough. It was all I needed." Back at school, Emily Harper and I became even more like strangers after that night. With her busy preparing for her arts entrance exams, she barely had any time to acknowledge my existence, which suited me just fine. I focused on my studies, burying myself in endless practice questions. I didn't expect Ryan Harper to reappear so soon, let alone with a fresh, beautifully arranged bouquet. It had only been a week since his humiliating confession to Emily. First, his failed attempt was the talk of the school, but with everyone swamped by their studies, the gossip quickly fizzled out. Normally, Ryan would have lashed out at those mocking him, but this time he had endured it for an entire week. That alone was surprising. Ryan cornered me behind the dormitory, away from the crowd. This time, he was smarter, not making a scene. He blocked my path but didn't say a word. "Do you need something?" I asked, breaking the silence. At the sound of my voice, Ryan's eyes turned red, as though he were on the verge of tears. His odd behavior made me step back cautiously. Something about him felt off. Finally, Ryan spoke, his voice trembling. "Lily Harper, after all these years, I've completely fallen for you, but the deeper my feelings grow, the more afraid I become." The words were different from the confession he'd made to Emily last week, but that didn't matter. This was my chance to hit him while he was down, and I wasn't about to let it slip away. So I waited patiently for him to finish, watching the hope in his eyes as he looked at me expectantly. Then, with a cold expression, I said, "Even a dog wouldn't fall for you." Ryan froze, his eyes wide in disbelief, as if he couldn't comprehend my response. "Perfect." I was satisfied. Turning, I prepared to leave, but then he spoke again. "Lie," he called out. The word hit me like a bolt of lightning. The way he said it, filled with complex emotion, was unmistakable. In that instant, I knew Ryan Harper, like me, had been reborn. Lie was a nickname he had only started using after we got married in my previous life. It was something he'd picked up after overhearing Emily's husband call her that. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it because both Emily's name and mine shared the character for Ly. But now, it was clear. Ryan had seen me as Emily's substitute all along. The realization was revolting. My face turned cold as I glared at him. Ryan stepped forward to block my way. "Lie, please let me explain. There was nothing between me and Emily. After she deleted me, it was over." "And before she deleted you?" I shot back. Ryan faltered but finally said, "There was nothing between us. You have to believe me. I love you. That's why I married you." I laughed bitterly. "Then why did you get drunk after her divorce?" "Ryan, stop lying to yourself. And don't try to disgust me further." But he wouldn't give up. "Lie, I know you're just angry. You love me too much to abandon me. Look at me. I have bad grades, an average background. Yet you secretly loved me for years. How could you stop loving me now?" His confidence was infuriating, and I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Do you know why I liked you back then?" I asked, meeting his gaze. He looked at me, confused. "Because I mistook you for someone else," I said. His expression shifted as I continued. "It was my first year in the city, and I got on the wrong bus. Lost and without a phone or money. I couldn't remember my parents' number. I ended up at the last stop, waiting, hoping some kind driver might take me back. But the terminal was remote, with an hour between buses. As the sky darkened, I started to feel scared, so much so that I burst into tears. That moment, a boy wearing a hat and a mask walked over, coughing lightly as he asked, "Do you need help?" He was wearing the same school uniform as me. To me, he was like a lifeline. Between sobs, I explained my situation. He was clearly sick. But his raspy voice was full of kindness as he comforted me and called a cab to take me home, even paying for it himself. Because of the hat and mask, I couldn't see his face, but I noticed his Stitch-themed wallet. Later, I saw Ryan Harper using the same wallet to pay for something. Combined with their similar build and height, I assumed he was the one who had helped me. That's how I started to pay attention to Ryan, and eventually, I developed feelings for him. After I got together with Ryan, a random conversation made me realize he wasn't the boy who helped me that day. By then, I had already fallen for him, so I just went along with it. When I finished recounting this, Ryan looked at me in disbelief. Because of a wallet? Just because of a wallet? Stores sell hundreds of those every day. And you? I cut him off. It wasn't about the wallet. It was about the person. Unfortunately, I never found out his name or what he looked like. But Ryan, if it weren't for the misunderstanding, I wouldn't have noticed you, let alone liked you. Ryan stared at me for a long time before finally speaking. So what you're saying is that your love for me wasn't real. It was stolen. I thought about it, then shook my head. Not stolen. You didn't know I had mistaken you for someone else. But this time, I won't like you again. You're not worth it. Not even a little. My love had been timid yet passionate, while his had been fake and unworthy. I walked away, leaving Ryan standing there alone. He stayed frozen in place for a long time before letting out a bitter laugh, tears streaming down his face as he laughed. The college entrance exams arrived quickly. I felt good about my performance and believed I could get into a first-tier university. Emily, however, didn't fare as well. During her art school entrance exam, a careless mistake led to her USB drive being damaged by another candidate. As a result, her final score was far from ideal, leaving her no choice but to return for the standard college entrance exams. However, she was far behind on academic knowledge, and catching up proved nearly impossible. On the day the exams ended, she locked herself in her room while I prepared to return to the countryside with my grandparents. That's when my mom started trying to convince me to stay. Lily, I was wrong in the past. I shouldn't have treated you that way. We're family. Families should stay together. My dad chimed in as well. We bought this house because it had 3 bedrooms. One for Emily and one for you. I found it laughable. Now that I didn't need anything from them, they suddenly wanted to make amends. Like I said before, I hope the 3 of you stay happy together. I replied, turning to leave with my grandparents. First, they tried to persuade me to stay, but when they saw I wasn't budging, they gave up. As the new semester approached, I heard that my parents wanted Emily to retake the exams, but she chose to enroll in a technical college instead. Disappointed, they even threatened to cut ties with her if she didn't retake the exams. Emily, unbothered, replied, the same way you didn't want to acknowledge Lily. Right. Her words left them speechless. When it was time for me to report to my university, I had already shipped my luggage ahead of time, traveling lightly. However, seemed everyone had the same idea. The path from the drop-off point to the dorms was jam-packed with luggage. Just as I was debating how to navigate the chaos, a gentle voice from behind asked, "Do you need help?" He was wearing the same school uniform as me, and for a moment, I froze. His voice was warm and gentle, with a faint familiarity that tugged at something buried deep in my memory. I turned around slowly, and my eyes caught a subtle detail. His bag, slightly unzipped, revealed a Stitch wallet peeking out. My heart skipped a beat. Could it really be him?